China are bit by bit taking over the world in every sector imaginable. Whereas once before, key industries were ruled by Japanese or American manufacturers, slowly but surely Chinese companies are swooping in to steal those crowns. This has led to a great deal of criticism from companies and countries who simply no longer can compete with China. And the latest criticism has come from the US Foreign Minister, Antony Blinken himself, who at last week's conclusion of the G7 meeting between foreign ministers used his closing statement to discuss not the war going on in the Middle East that threatens to bubble over and start World War III, but instead he used those concluding statements as a chance to conjure up new terms for criticizing China.
Trying to take steps to contain its development, whether it's over Taiwan, Russia, or increasingly over accusations of Chinese industrial overcapacity, especially in the electric vehicle sector.
Overcapacity seems to be the new buzzword used to denounce China and belittle their competitive manufacturing processes. Or at least it seems to be, as the word overcapacity was only added to some dictionaries 6 days ago. Let's look more closely at the claims from the US Foreign Minister and break it down to see whether or not there is any truth to what he's claiming, or whether the claims of overcapacity are just a pretext and excuse by himself and the G7 to implement protectionist barriers against Chinese goods, which could be more about shielding less competitive domestic industries, rather than addressing any real issues of market saturation or economic harm. The G7 foreign ministers just concluded a meeting in Italy, where despite all that is going on in the world, be it with Iran, Israel, Palestine, inflation, China deserved the closing statements of US Foreign Minister Blinken, whereby he concluded the meeting by observing that China's cheap products are harming the global markets, coining a phrase for this, overcapacity.
所谓中国产能过剩论并不是一个新概念。当年，美国曾把中国向世界出口大量物美价廉的产品称为产能过剩，现在又给中国向世界出口新能源产品贴上了产能过剩的标签。
But what does it actually mean? Are China being anti-competitive, or is the G7 simply afraid of losing? Essentially, the G7 is accusing China of producing more goods than the global market can absorb, which they claim distorts competition and harms Western industries. Because, of course, with an oversupply of goods, prices fall to levels that European and American manufacturers simply cannot compete with. When production capacity exceeds the demand for a product, the market becomes saturated with those goods. This excess supply can result in sellers having to lower their prices in an attempt to attract buyers and clear out their inventory, leading to a competitive pricing environment, which of course is great for consumers like you and I, but not so great for those companies who can't compete or hold a profit margin at those prices.
Actions taken by the PRC today can shift world prices. And when the global market is flooded by artificially cheap Chinese products, the viability of American and other foreign firms is put into question.
But here's the twist. China's manufacturing sector is accused of overproducing, while also being the backbone of global supply chains across countless industries. So something clearly isn't adding up. If China is supposedly overwhelming the world with excess products, why are countries around the globe still choosing these products? The answer is simple: competitiveness. Chinese goods meet market demands in terms of quality, price, and quantity. In fact, they meet those market demands better than their competitors, which is why they seem to be winning. The issue, therefore, isn't overcapacity, it's that these products are often more appealing than those produced in G7 countries. And with this extra context, it seems that the term overcapacity is just an excuse for G7 countries to put forth protectionist measures. It's important to note that China is still evolving from an industrial-heavy economy to a more service-orientated one. Yet it still continues to outpace many developed nations in its innovation in sectors like green technology. Now, the G7 stance might reflect less about Chinese economic policy and more about their own shortcomings in adapting to new economic realities. By labeling effective competition as harmful overcapacity, the G7 risks stifling innovation and shielding inefficient industries from necessary evolution. Moreover, the concept that the global market, rather than a group of rich nations, should determine market needs seems to be lost on the G7. If products made in G7 countries are superior, wouldn't market dynamics naturally favour them? People would just pick those products. This contradiction reveals a deeper fear of competition, not a principled stand on market practices. There's a suggestion, therefore, that the real issue for the G7 is not Chinese overcapacity, but their own need to adjust to changing global economic conditions by possibly reindustrializing and adopting strategies similar to China's to regain competitive edge. And it's not just manufacturing where China has an edge. A report the other day showed that China has 232 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States. Beyond economics, there's a geopolitical angle. China's growing influence through initiatives like the Belt and Road suggests a shift towards a more multipolar world where Western dominance is no longer a given, as it has been for the last 150 years at least. Now, this is probably pretty unsettling for the G7 and, of course, America, which has traditionally set the rules of the game. China's commitment to developing green technologies like electric vehicles and solar panels, photovoltaics, not only positions itself as a leader in sustainable development, but also highlights the lag in similar initiatives within some G7 countries. It's interesting that even in areas where the whole world benefits, like green technology, China is still receiving criticism despite their actions having an overwhelmingly net positive impact on the world. For example, China's role in pushing forward green technologies such as electric vehicles, solar panels, photovoltaics, all of that kind of stuff, obviously it's a positive contribution to the global economy. But this contrasts sharply with the G7's criticisms. These efforts are, of course, beneficial, particularly for developing nations, which suggests that the G7 should perhaps focus more on enhancing their own competitive offerings in these areas. So it seems that the narrative of overcapacity might be more about the insecurities of the G7, rather than the realities of global manufacturing. The underlying concerns of the G7 may stem more from geopolitical strategies and the fear of losing economic dominance, rather than from any genuine issues caused by Chinese manufacturing. As we indeed move towards a more interconnected and competitive global economy, the ability of any single group of nations to dictate terms is diminishing. Maybe it's time for the G7 to rethink not just their economic strategies, but also their approach to international relations. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis helpful and for more insights on travel, business, politics, architecture, and infrastructure from inside China, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.